Okay, ladies, welcome back to the discussion. Because the video I did before for section 11.4 ran too long to suit YouTube, I'll be breaking 11.4 up into two sections. The first section we're going to talk about initializing arrays, and then we'll be doing some chalk talk analysis of the getAverage method, which is a generalized method that's been defined for the student class. And then we'll break and talk about the debugger and use the debugger to analyze how the getAverage routine works. So the first thing we want to talk about is declaring variables. So I'll turn the camera off. So to declare and initialize an array variable, first thing you have to specify is the type of data it contains, followed by a set of square brackets to indicate that it is an array. Give it the name of the variable that you want to call, the name that you want to call the variable, like grades in this case, and then set it equal to, and here, rather than one initialization, we're going to give it several. Okay, that initializes the array grades. I have 5 grades, the values indicated. If you input the name grades alone, as is the case with Dr. Java, you can see the values that are stored in grades. It will print them out. This is the equivalent of putting it into a system out print line statement. If you want to see the value of a particular grade, grade sub 3, you'll notice that it prints out the value 0.84, which indicates that the third element, actually the fourth element of the array, is 0.84. Remember, we start counting array elements from 0, so the third, element with index 3 is actually the fourth element. Okay, we can also, for example, declare a string array. Let's do this a little bit differently. You can also put the square brackets behind the name of the variable if you want to. So exactly the same kind of thing. Type in the name of the array variable, and we get back the values that are stored there. So the initialization occurs in exactly the same way in both cases. Now, we're going to use this array grades to create ourselves a new student object. You may recall that we have a constructor that we can go back up here and look at. A constructor that takes two, oops, I'm in the wrong place here. Constructor that takes two input variables, a string that contains the name, and an array that contains the grades for that student. So we're going to call that student, let's say, Mary Jones, and pass the array grades as containing the grades for that student. And we have some kind of a problem here. So the problem is static error, undefined class, student. You'll notice that the student has a lowercase letter. I'll go back over here, change that to an uppercase letter. It'll work right. Okay, so S1, object named Mary Jones, average 0.76. Now, why did it print out Mary Jones' average? Well, it printed out Mary Jones' average for two reasons. One is I've changed my toString method to return the student object named and the name of the object that's contained in the instance variable, as well as the average, which is gotten by invoking the getAverage routine. Here's the getAverage method. the getAverage method will take that internal grade array and use it to calculate the student's grade point average. Let's see how it does that. Okay, the method is defined as being public, can be used by anybody, returns a double, doesn't require any input parameters. It sets up a variable called average, which it sets to 0 initially, because the average is 0 as far as we're concerned. And then this statement is very important. This is a statement right here, just this if statement. If this grade array is not equal to null, that means there's actually some data in the grade array, and its length is greater than 0, so the grade array actually contains data, then in this section right here, we're going to actually calculate the average of the grades. So notice we set up a double called sum, and we initialize it to be 0. And then for int I, if the int is our index variable, equals 0, and for as long as it's less than the length of the grade array, we increment I by 1 every time through. We take the current element of this grade array, the grade array that's the instance variable, indexed by the variable I, and add it to the sum. Now this is a little bit different than what you see in your book for this getAverage routine. Sum plus equals this grade array means exactly the same thing as sum equals sum plus this grade array sub I. So this loop just does, this for loop just does one statement, adding each grade in turn to the sum. So when it gets all done, you'll have a sum that consists of the sum of all the grades for this student. Now to calculate the average, we just take that sum that we've calculated and divide it by the length of the array. Remember, if we take the array name, this.gradeArray.length, that will give us the number of elements in the array. And then once we're done with that, return the average back. Now, this statement right here, this if statement, is very important. If the grade array has not been initialized, or it doesn't have any elements in it, then this if statement will cause this entire loop to be skipped. And you'll return an average, which will be equal to 0, because this statement will never be executed at all. So for that reason, if we have a particular student, a particular object, does not yet have any grades recorded, their average will simply be returned as 0. So that's how that the getAverage routine works. The getAverage routine is a routine that is a general routine within the class definition, allowing us to calculate something like the average, or calculate something based upon the data that consists of the instance variables. So what we'll do in the next video that I put up is we will take a look at this getAverage routine with the debugger and see how it is actually working. So we'll sign off for right now, and then we'll come back and look at the getAverage routine with the debugger.